A Millionaire's hidden test, dressing as poor exposed an incredible truth that changed everything. David Thompson stood at the intersection of opulence and emptiness, a self-made millionaire cloaked in the trappings of wealth yet burdened by a gnawing void. In Maplewood, where luxury cars gleamed like polished trophies and manicured lawns whispered of extravagance, he felt painfully out of place. The fear of superficial friendships and insincere smiles pushed him toward a reckless idea: what if he could rediscover humanity by disguising himself as someone entirely different? Thus, Danny was born a struggling mechanic from the gritty streets of Brookside. As David strolled through Brookside, the scene before him was a stark contrast to the polished aesthetics of his life. He inhaled the fragrant scent of barbecue sizzling in backyards, where laughter intertwined with the sounds of basketballs bouncing on cracked asphalt. Families animatedly shared stories over faded wooden fences, unaware that behind his worn cap, a millionaire yearned for connection. It was in a modest home, drenched in warmth, that David met Sarah Jenkins, a tenacious single mother juggling 2 jobs to keep a roof over her son's head. Her fierce spirit inspired him, reigniting the flicker of empathy that wealth had dulled. As each evening unfolded beneath the dim glow of flickering streetlights, their conversations flowed, rich with life's struggles, the tight budget, the dreams deferred. Timmy, with his eyes bright and dreams even brighter, revealed a world of engineering sketches, playground ambitions that mirrored David's own boyhood aspirations. The feeling of community began to wash over him, a tide of urgency and acceptance that sent shivers down his spine. How had he lived without this connection for so long? But secrets weigh heavy, and David felt the tension thread through his interactions like a storm on the horizon. What would happen if they learned the truth? He questioned whether it was right to keep pretending. Would they see him for the fraud he was, or could he prove he understood their everyday battles? Then came that fateful day. Sarah confronted him, her hurt blazing in her eyes. "You aren't Danny. You're hiding behind a lie." The words cut like a knife, and the air thickened with betrayal. Community members rallied around her, their faces blurred with confusion and resentment. David's heart sank. The warm connection he had built began to crumble, the admiration of those he wished to connect with now twisted into disdain. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. David knew he had to confront the truth. The annual Maplewood block party loomed ahead, a gathering of festive spirits and familiar faces. There, under the bright lights and vibrant chatter, he would have to choose the easy way of slipping back into anonymity or the difficult path of honesty. Would they ever forgive him? Could he prove his genuine desire to support their dreams, even after the deception? As he prepared to speak, the crowd hushed. Eyes turned on him, anticipation rippling through the audience like a live wire. In that weighty silence, he took a deep breath, knowing the moment could change everything. David stood at the center of the block party, a whirlwind of laughter, music, and community spirit swirling around him. The air was heavy with the scent of fried dough and the sweet tang of lemonade, yet it offered little comfort. His heart raced in sync with the pulsing lights above, as the eyes of his neighbors bore into him. They were a tapestry of emotions: curiosity, anger, confusion. He felt exposed, stripped of the armor his wealth had provided. The moment hung like a ripe fruit, ready to drop. He had rehearsed what he would say countless times, his thoughts a jumble of regret and desperation. With each shallow breath, he felt the weight of the deception he had lived. "I'm sorry," he blurted out, shocking both himself and the crowd. The simple apology echoed around the square, reverberating against the laughter that now felt so distant. "Sorry for what, Danny? For lying to us?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice assertive yet laced with sadness. The fire in her eyes was undeniable. Do you think that we just let you into our lives so you could play pretend? David's voice trembled. I needed to understand to connect with people who truly inspire me. And in the way I approached this, I lost myself completely. Pain wrapped around his chest like a vice. That was never my intention. I wanted to help, to be a part of something real. Timmy stood beside Sarah, his young face a mix of confusion, disappointment, and something deeper, a yearning for understanding. You painted a lie, Danny. That's all I ever knew you as. The guy who listens while fixing things. A knot tightened in David's throat. I thought if I could inhabit your world even just for a bit I could feel what it was to live as you do, to really live. The crowd remained silent, their expressions a whirlwind of uncertainty. He could see some mothers whispering among themselves, their brows furrowed. Children paused their games, casting curious eyes toward him. Then a voice rang out, breaking the tension. What do you really know about us, Danny? It was Mr. Harrison, an older gentleman with a weathered face and kind heart at the community center. How could a man with money ever begin to understand what it's like to get by on nothing? David felt as if he were sinking into a quicksand of his own making. I can learn, I can change. I want to support you all, not just now, but for real. Please, let me show you that I can be better. His words echoed off the walls of the nearby houses, pleading for acceptance. Slowly, murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. Some faces softened, but others remained skeptical. Sarah crossed her arms, her posture shifting from aggressive to wary. How can we trust you now? We opened our lives to you based on a lie. I understand that trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild, David replied, a weight anchoring his voice. But all I ask is for a chance to prove I can turn my wealth into something that genuinely helps our community. I've seen your struggles, your strength, and I admire it more than I can say. The tension in the air shifted slightly, a glimmer of consideration breaking through the doubts. But just as hope began to take root, a loud voice boomed from the other side of the festival. What if he's just here to take? What if he doesn't care at all? As doubt surged back into the crowd, David felt urgency rise. He had come too far to let this moment slip away. If you give me one chance, I'll invest in your dreams, your projects. Not as a millionaire, but as your neighbor. Why should we believe you? Timmy asked, his voice steady yet trembling underneath his bravado. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, and David could feel the weight of the moment hanging heavy. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about community, trust, and change. How could he ignite the fire of belief within them once more? But as his heart raced against the clock, an unexpected figure emerged from the crowd, leaning on a crutch, a flicker of hope in their gaze, asking the question that could shift everything. The figure limped forward on a well-worn crutch, each step a testament to resilience. David squinted through the afternoon light, trying to catch a glimpse of the person's face. It was Ms. Thompson, an older woman known for her sharp mind and fierce loyalty to the community. Her silver hair glinted under the sun, and despite her struggle to move, her eyes held a clarity that seemed to cut through the noise around them. What do you want, Ms. Thompson? Sarah asked, her tone softening as she stepped aside. The crowd parted a bit, forming a listening circle around David and the elderly woman. Ms. Thompson looked at David, her expression a mix of sympathy and challenge. You said you want to understand. Prove it. No more grand gestures or empty promises. Show us who you really are. David felt his heart skip a beat. This was the chance he had yearned for, but the crush of responsibility felt heavier than it ever had before. How? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Small acts, Danny. One neighbor at a time, she said. Start with me. The crowd murmured, some voices tight with skepticism while others showed sparks of hope. David nodded, determination surging within him. Tell me what you need, Ms. Thompson. I'll make it happen. Ms. Thompson hesitated, her brow creasing with thought. I run a book club for the kids every Saturday. But my old house doesn't have the space, and the library is often locked. They need a place to meet, a safe space to dream, learn. Let us turn that into a reality, David said, words flowing with newfound confidence. We could set up a little reading room in the community center, bring in some comfortable chairs, books, maybe even a few computers for the kids. You think it will be that easy? Sarah interjected, disbelief still lingering in her tone. What if it all falls through like your facade? David held her gaze, that fire inside him sparking brighter. Then I'll follow through. I promise to be there, making sure everything runs smoothly. I want to earn your trust, and this is where it starts. Timmy looked up, his young face painted with a mix of curiosity and resolve. I'd help. I could gather books and make posters. That's the spirit. David exclaimed, feeling a swell of pride and hope. But it's not just about making a reading room, Miss Thompson continued. You've got to be present. Don't just drop off donations and leave. You stay, you listen, you engage. The crowd began to wave with enthusiasm, connecting with the idea. Those skeptical faces softened, replaced by a flicker of belief. But David knew this was just the beginning. A child's laughter erupted from nearby, breaking the tension that had built like a tightrope. As David looked around, he saw people talking, some smiling. Yet doubt still danced through the air, swirling dangerously close to the fragile hope kindled in light of Miss Thompson's challenge. He had to prove he was more than a fake neighbor playing pretend. And just then, behind Miss Thompson, stood a figure clad in a tattered jacket, a teenager David recognized from the neighborhood. Their eyes locked, and in that brief moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. What are you going to do to support our dreams, Danny? The teenager asked brightly, but their voice was layered, almost mocking. David's heart raced again as the question lingered, weighing heavily on his conscience. This isn't just about me. It's about us, he replied, but even his own words felt tenuous. As the sun set, casting golden hues on the block party, David could feel the collective gaze of the crowd growing more intense. The stakes were rising, and this was now about more than just plans or repairs. It was about his very own transformation, and it would take more than words. But as the shadows of doubt crept closer, he wondered, could he truly rise to the challenge, or was this just another empty promise in a long line of failures? He could feel their eyes, their hopes and skepticism, waiting for his answer. And in that moment, he knew he had no choice but to step forward and face whatever it took. David took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The world around him faded, and all he could hear was the steady thump of his heart. He stepped closer to the teenager, trying to dispel the tension hanging in the air. The eyes of the crowd bore into him, scanning for sincerity. This was the first real test of his resolve. I want to support you, he said, his voice strong enough to catch the attention of others in the crowd. No more hiding. No more pretending. I want to be here, with all of you. Ms. Thompson nodded, her wise eyes gleaming as she caught the fire igniting in David. Then do something, she urged. Talk to the kids, get to know them. Your actions will speak for themselves. Timmy's enthusiasm shone through. I could help, too. I want to make sure it's cool for everyone. Are we going to have snacks? He asked, bouncing on his feet. Absolutely. David replied, a smile breaking across his face at Timmy's eagerness. Ideas began to flood his mind, not just books, but art supplies, games, and food. A place where creativity could thrive, but then a familiar voice called from the edge of the crowd. You're just overcompensating, Danny. We've heard promises before. It was Sarah again, arms crossed, doubt laced in her demeanor. David felt a flicker of anger rise. I'm not just talking now, Sarah. I mean it. I want to walk away after setting things up. I'll stay. I'll listen. Together, we can make a difference. She looked at him, her defenses slowly softening. And what if it all crumbles? What if you can't keep up with your own ideas? David opened his mouth to respond, but instead, he looked at Ms. Thompson, who was watching him with a knowing expression. She raised an eyebrow, inviting him to dig deeper within himself. I guess. I'm scared too, David admitted, the honesty surprising even him. But what I realized is that sometimes fear can't paralyze us. It can push us to be better. If I fall, I'll get up and try again. For the kids. For this community. The crowd fell silent, the tension shifting into something palpable. He could see their skepticism wavering, replaced by something more hopeful. Among them, the teenager in the tattered jacket seemed to nod, contemplating the bravery it took to be vulnerable. Then, as if caught in the moment's energy, a little girl broke into the crowd, her pigtails bouncing as she approached David. Will you read to us? She asked, her face alight with innocence. David's heart melted. Yes, I will. I'll read to all of you. And we can even have storytelling nights. Storytelling. Echoed Timmy, and soon others began chiming in, the spirit of excitement igniting the air. I'll organize the books. A woman in the front shouted, raising her hand as if volunteering for a call to arms. One by one, people began to step forward, eager to help, but just as the atmosphere shifted into one of optimistic energy, a loud thud echoed from the back of the crowd. David turned to see a glimpse of a fallen flyer that someone had discarded in the excitement, the words Community Unity Meeting boldly highlighted. A chill ran down his spine as he realized it wasn't just about him. The community needed to come together, both the supporters and the detractors. When he caught the teenager's eye once more, it felt like a challenge. Let us see if you can handle this, Danny, the teen half smirked. If you really believe in this, then remember, every voice counts, even those who doubt you. David swallowed. He'd have to reach out to everyone, not just those willing to listen. As the chatter of excitement swelled around him, he felt the moment consolidating into something bigger than he could have anticipated. This wasn't just the start of a reading room, it was about fostering a community, but deep down, David was aware of a lurking question gnawing at his heart: could he really bridge the divide and gain the trust of those who doubted him? With faces now turning toward him with hope, David pondered what would come next. There was so much left to do, and he knew the real challenge was just beginning. David stood at the epicenter of a burgeoning hope, surrounded by curious faces filled with both anticipation and skepticism. He could feel the collective heartbeat of the crowd, pulsing with energy, and it emboldened him. Yet, that specter of doubt shadowed his every thought. Okay, everyone, he called out, raising his hands to quiet the murmurs. Let us make a plan. We need to decide what this community space will look like and how we can all be involved. Timmy jumped up again, eyes wide. We should have a chalkboard for ideas. Great idea. David said, noting the spark of inspiration igniting among other kids. And maybe an art wall where everyone can express themselves. From the back, Sarah's voice sliced through the moment. You're thinking too small, Danny. Kids aren't just looking for arts and crafts. They need something real, a way to connect. David felt a flush of irritation but knew better than to let it surface. You're right, Sarah. We need real connections. I want to hear everyone's ideas. Let us brainstorm. But as excited kids started to shout suggestions, David felt the weight of Sarah's skepticism clamping down on his resolve. She had seen too much disappointment, he could see that in her eyes. What do you think they really need? He asked Sarah, willing to lean into the challenge. She hesitated, arms still crossed. They need to know someone cares enough to stick around. No more talk. Just show up. That's what they want to see. Then show me how to do it, David replied, an invitation wrapped in vulnerability. Help me figure this out together. Slowly, Sarah unfolded her arms. Fine. But if this falls apart, I'm not going to be here to catch you. David nodded, the simmering tension easing just a bit. He was learning that trust was a two-way street. As the enthusiasm built around them, he saw their shared determination taking root. By the end of the meeting, snippets of energy filled the space. A game night was scheduled. Proposals for a community garden popped up, even a volunteer cooking day. The atmosphere was buzzing, the air electric with anticipation. However, David felt a pang of uncertainty. What if it all fell flat? He had seen the way hope dimmed in the eyes of those who had been disappointed before. Those gazes haunted him. After the crowd dispersed, he lingered behind to gather his thoughts. The little girl who had first approached him found him again, tugging on his sleeve. "Are you really going to read stories?" "Absolutely," he replied, warmth wrapping around his heart at her eager expression. "Promise?" Her eyes sparkled with innocent hope. "Promise." His heart sank and soared at the same time. As he ventured outside, he caught sight of the teenager in the tattered jacket once more. The smirk was gone, and in its place was a knowing look. "You really think you can pull this off?" "I want to," David said, feeling that familiar rush of adrenaline. "But I need everyone to join in. I can't do this alone." The teen studied him. It felt like a test. "Then you'd better learn to listen. It's a wild ride, and not everyone's going to forgive you easily." David silenced the doubts brewing in his mind and squared his shoulders. "I'm ready for it." The teenager stepped back and began to walk away, turning only for a moment. "Then be prepared for the truth, Danny. It's coming whether you like it or not." David watched as the teen blended into the shadows, the weight of unanswered questions resting heavily on his chest. The energy around him faded, leaving him alone with his thoughts. What truth hung just out of reach? And did he really have the strength to unravel it? The challenges ahead loomed larger than he anticipated, and he could only hope he wouldn't falter. With dawn breaking in hues of orange and pink, David felt the weight of the coming day pressing down on him like a thick fog. He had promised hope to the community, but those words felt fragile in the cold light of morning. Could he really bring everyone together? He walked slowly toward the park, each step blending with the rhythmic chirping of the birds. David envisioned the mural wall blooming with colors, the sounds of laughter echoing off its vibrant canvas. But as he entered the park, his heart sank slightly. The usual morning scene felt hollow. A few children wandered aimlessly, while a group of teenagers lounged on the swings, their guarded expressions echoing Sarah's skepticism. "Hey, Danny. You're actually going to try and make this happen?" Timmy shouted, running over with a grin. His enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment, it brightened the air. David smiled back, feeling the flicker of hope ignite again. "Yup. Today's the day we get started." Timmy bounced on his toes. "What's first?" "We set up the chalkboard for everyone's ideas. Then we can brainstorm what we want to do first." David felt a surge of excitement as he spoke. Behind him, the park still looked empty, but he sensed potential stirring beneath the surface. As they set up, Sarah joined them, arms crossed once more. "This better not be a waste of time," she muttered, giving David an irritated look. "Just give it a chance," David said, trying to infuse his tone with confidence. He needed Sarah on board. Her experience could guide him. A few more kids trickled in, curious about the commotion. David greeted them warmly and opened up the chalkboard. Messages of hope started to fill the space, with everyone scribbling down ideas, painting visions of community dinners and art contests, yet a familiar shadow loomed just on the edge of his mind. What if it didn't work? What if he failed? "David!" Timmy called out, breaking his thoughts. "Look! They're coming." David turned to see a small cluster of kids approaching, unsure yet curious. His heart raced. They were the ones who needed this most, the ones who had lost faith in promises. "Hey! Welcome!" he greeted, spreading his arms wide, inviting them into the moment. "We're making a space for everyone, where we can share ideas and have fun together." Their eyes flickered with uncertainty, but one of the boys stepped forward. "What kind of fun?" "Games. Art. Stories. Anything you want," David replied, feeling the pulse of his earlier confidence beat a new point. One girl raised her brow. "You really think we'll care? Why wouldn't you?" He shot back, his voice steadier than he felt. "You matter here. We all do." The group exchanged glances, and David sensed the shift. Voices began to rise, ideas flowed, and laughter broke through the quiet like sunlight. Yet in the midst of it all, a tension curled deep within him. What if they came together only to scatter when the next storm approached? "Just remember to listen," Sarah cautioned quietly as voices filled the air. "Not everyone will trust you right away." He nodded instinctively, feeling the truth of her words wrap around him. The day's beginnings were promising, yet what lay beneath the surface felt more tumultuous. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the park with warm golden rays, David's resolve hardened. He couldn't let fear guide him. Not anymore, but as the laughter echoed louder, he recognized a deeper truth in Sarah's warning. The real challenge awaited beyond the joyful chaos, lurking like shadows just out of sight, eager to reshape everything he thought he understood about the community they were building. What hidden challenges would arise when the cold reality surfaced? And in the end, would he have the strength to face them head-on? The energy in the park shifted like a tide, pulling together groups of kids who had once seemed so distant. Laughter mingled with excitement as ideas exploded on the chalkboard, scarlet and sky blue chalk swirling together as children sketched, scribbled, and planned. David watched, his heart swelling with pride. This moment was just a glimpse of what could be. "Let us keep this going," he called out, his voice echoing with hope. "How about we start with some games?" Timmy jumped up, eyes shining. "What kind of games?" "I love games." David waved his hands, drawing everyone's attention. "How about a treasure hunt? We can make it big. Everyone can join in, and we can hide clues all around the park." The kids erupted in cheers. The thrill of their energy buzzed in the air like electric sparks. But just as swiftly, David's heart thudded in his chest, the creeping doubt returning. Would this excitement last? Or would it fade like last week's rain? "Wait!" Sarah interrupted, her brow furrowed with concern. "What if someone takes it too far? What if it ends in chaos?" "Chaos can be fun too." Timmy piped in, his enthusiasm unwavering. David nodded, trying to anchor Sarah's worries while keeping the moment alive. "We'll set some ground rules. We can make this safe for everyone," he assured her. The vulnerability in Sarah's eyes gave him pause. They had different visions for what this day could mean, but he wanted to merge them. As they began to organize different teams for the treasure hunt, one boy stepped forward, uncertainty etched across his face. "Are we really allowed to participate? I mean, what if we mess it up?" David crouched down, meeting him eye to eye. "You're allowed to be a part of this just as much as anyone else. It's not about messing up, it's about trying, helping each other, and learning along the way." The boy hesitated but then nodded slowly, the shadows lifting from his gaze. Around them, a few parents began to arrive, drawn by the laughter. David's stomach tightened. Would they see the chaos too? Would they pull their kids back? "Hey!" he called out, waving to a group of adults watching. "We're just getting started. We'd love your support." To David's surprise, a few parents approached, smiles on their faces. "What is going on here?" one woman asked, curiosity taking her over. "We're organizing a treasure hunt," Timmy shouted, his excitement contagious. The adults exchanged glances, and slowly, encouragement blossomed among them. David couldn't help but feel a rush of relief. Just then, Sarah leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have to be prepared for more than just fun. These kids might need guidance, you know. Let us figure it out as we go. David answered, a hint of defiance in his voice. Something was shaping up here, and he refused to crush it with doubt. As they began to organize the first treasure hunt, laughter mixed with nervous chatter filled the park. David watched them run, every step echoing with potential. This wasn't just about the games, it was about building a connection, a community bound by laughter and effort. But just as a cheer erupted in the air, whispers of discontent began circulating among some of the older kids watching from the sidelines. Flickers of resentment and doubt surged in the uncharted waters of excitement. What if they ruin it? Sarah's voice danced in his mind again. David clenched his jaw. Would chaos follow? A sudden outburst from a group of teenagers on the swings shattered David's hopeful moment. What a joke! This won't change anything. He felt his heart plummet. What if they were right? What if he had misjudged everything? Would his promise of hope crumble under the weight of reality? The swell of uncertainty rose again, tightening around his throat like a noose. David inhaled deeply, committed more than ever to stand firm. This wasn't just about one day, it was about taking the first steps towards something bigger. As shadows of doubt loomed closer, he glanced around at the children immersed in their laughter, their faces lit with joy. He couldn't let the darkness win. Not today. And as he prepared to confront the brewing storm, he realized that the next test wouldn't just be about the treasure hunt or games. It would be about unity, strength, and resilience against the doubts of others. What would David choose to do when the tide turned? Would he stand strong in the face of negativity, or would he crumble under the weight of the unseen challenges that lay ahead? The air in the park shifted again, rippling with anticipation. David could almost feel the energy crackling like static. Clusters of kids were buzzing with excitement, sketching out a map of the treasure hunt, but in the midst of that joy, doubt hovered. The voices of the teenagers by the swings replayed in his mind a broken record of skepticism that seemed louder than the laughter surrounding him. Okay, everyone, let us regroup. David called, clapping his hands to gather the growing teams. We have a plan, and we need to stick to it. As if immune to his words, the older teens shouted back, are you seriously believing this will work? Treasure hunts are for kids. Their jeers felt like an icy splash of water in contrast to the warmth of the children present. David felt the burn of embarrassment creeping up his neck, but he steadied himself, looking around at the younger kids who painted smiles across their faces, leaning into every word he said. We're all here to have fun. We can prove them wrong by making this the best adventure ever, he shouted, his voice firm but inviting. He could see Timmy nodding fiercely, hopping in place with more determination than ever. Let us ignore them. We'll make our treasure hunt legendary. Timmy grinned, the kids echoed their agreement, but David could feel a collective hesitance, a ripple of worry mingling with the laughter. They began to scatter, rallying into teams. David counted them off, but the voices of doubt lingered. Hey, hold on a second. Sarah called, stepping forward to take her place next to David. What if we set up a real challenge for the teams? Something meaningful that ties us together. Like what? David asked, surprised by her fervent suggestion. A scavenger hunt where each clue is about something that holds value in our lives, she proposed, her eyes sparkling with a mix of creativity and seriousness. We could weave together our different backgrounds. It would be personal and fun. David felt a rush of energy from her idea. It was more than just a game, it was a way to connect, to bridge the gap between all ages and backgrounds, including the older kids watching skeptically from the sidelines. Let us do it, he said, feeling the weight of excitement return. The air was thick with determination as Sarah led the kids in brainstorming clues that reflected their individual stories and treasures. A lost toy, a favorite book, or even the wisdom passed down through generations would become part of the hunt. He couldn't help but smile. This was turning into something deeper, more meaningful than he had hoped. But just as they began to create their first clue, a loud voice cut through the clamor. You think this will bring you all together? It's pathetic. The laughter dwindled. David turned to face the speaker, an older girl with piercing eyes. She stood defiantly with her arms crossed, surrounded by her equally unimpressed friends. David felt another wave of doubt sweep through the group, but he pushed forward, unwilling to let the moment slip away. I think sometimes we have to take a chance, whether it's a treasure hunt or in life, he said, keeping his tone steady and calm. It's about what we make of it, what we're willing to learn from each other. For a brief moment, silence reigned. Then, from behind him, Timmy piped up, "Yeah. And if we can do this, if we can connect through stories, maybe we'll change how people see us." Hope blossomed again, fueled by the connection plucking at the heartstrings of everyone listening. David noticed the older girl's expression change slightly, curiosity flickered in her gaze, the tide was turning, but he knew there was still time to face resistance. "Come join us. Help make this the best treasure hunt ever." David called out, extending his hand as if to draw the older kids closer. Would they accept the invitation or continue to linger in their doubt? David's heart raced. He was holding on to more than just an idea, he was forging bonds, inviting change, and it all hung delicately in the air. The moment of truth was dawning. Would they step forward, or would the negativity overpower the moment? The air hung thick with uncertainty. The older girl remained still, her brows furrowed as she weighed David's challenge. Her friends shifted uncomfortably, whispering among themselves. David's heartbeat drummed in his ears, a reminder that change was often just one bold step away. "Are you really gonna trick us into playing this kiddie game?" she finally retorted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The other teens nodded in agreement, laughter bubbling up from their group, attempting to drown out the younger kids' spirited excitement. But Timmy, bright-eyed and determined, stepped forward. "It's not just a game. It's our stories. Everything we care about. That counts for something." His innocent passion cut through the negativity, a beacon in the haze of doubt. David glanced sideways at Sarah, whose smile encouraged him to keep pressing. "We're not trying to exclude anyone," he said, in a voice that remained steady despite the confrontation. "If you think it's just for kids, then help us make it for everyone. Show us that we can work together." The pause that followed felt heavy, almost electric. The older girl stood there, caught between her instincts to scoff and the glimmer of curiosity creeping into her expression. Then, slowly, she unfolded her arms and took a cautious step toward the group. "What's the first clue then?" she asked, a hint of a challenge lacing her words, but there was less hostility in her tone now. David grinned, relieved but also thrilled. "Our clues can be something that reminds us of who we are. Can you share something meaningful to you?" The older girl hesitated. "My grandmother's necklace. I lost it once when I was little and it shattered my heart until I found it again." A murmur rippled through the group. The kids around David shifted, intrigued. "See? That's perfect," Sarah exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. "We could make a clue about something that matters to us personally. It might help show everyone how similar we actually are." As the frostiness between the older teens and the younger ones began to thaw, David felt a spark of hope surging through him. One by one, the older teens shared their stories, stories that felt almost sacred, the football trophy that represented hard work, the faded book that had been passed down through generations, even a dog collar that reminded them of loyalty and love. Each fragment knotted them closer together. As they brainstormed, laughter began to return. Timmy's laughter was infectious, lifting the weight of doubt that hung over them like a gray cloud. The older girl's initial resistance melted into genuine smiles, her friends just as captivated. "Okay, what's next?" she asked, a look of camaraderie in her eyes now. David felt the rush of triumph swell within him, the kind that made everything feel lighter. "Let us find a place in the park that symbolizes our goals. Maybe where a big tree stands tall, where roots are intertwined. That'll lead us to our next clue." With renewed vigor, the group surged forward, a fluid mix of ages and backgrounds, hope and purpose wafting through the air like the sweet scent of blooming flowers. They wandered toward the oldest tree in the park, surrounded by wide-eyed children and confident teens. David looked back, a swell of optimism buzzing through him as he felt the shift transformation was happening. But just as they began to settle down to formulate their next clue, a sharp voice broke through the murmur. "What do you think you're going to accomplish here?" All heads turned to see another older boy, standing defiantly at the edge of their gathering. Challenge lit up in his eyes, daring them all to respond. The air shifted again. Would this be a moment of unity, or would they stumble back into doubt? David took a deep breath, ready to face whatever was coming. The fate of their treasure hunt hung in the balance, the answers unknown but the stakes higher than ever. David squared his shoulders, his heart pounding in time with the rising tension around him. "We're here to share our stories," he exclaimed, pushing back against the unwelcoming aura the new boy brought. "We're using this treasure hunt to show how we're all connected and how much our experiences matter." The surrounding kids nodded, fueled by David's energy. Timmy stepped up, undeterred by the newcomer. "Yeah. Each clue is something special to us. It'll be fun." The boy from earlier, who had guarded his emotions, hesitated just for a moment, but the skeptical boy's laughter rang out sharp and cutting. "Fun? You think that's all this is about? You're wasting your time." His friends snickered, but David didn't flinch. He recognized the defiance. He'd faced it too often in his own climb up the ladder of riches, where envy and disdain sometimes clouded genuine connection. "Why don't you join us and find out?" he challenged, locking eyes with the boy. "You might be surprised by what you'll learn." For a heartbeat, there was silence. The weight of expectation hung between them, heavy like the air before a storm. Would this be the moment they all turned back, or would it be the breakthrough that solidified their bonds? Just then, Ms. Thompson emerged from the edge of the gathering, her crutch steady in her grasp, the very embodiment of resilience. "Sometimes, the loudest voices mask the softest hearts," she said softly but firmly, bringing a hush over the crowd. "When you break down barriers, you find strength from unexpected places." The older boy rolled his eyes, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. He wavered on the edge of deciding whether to push on or reconsider. "What's stopping you from trying?" Ms. Thompson added, her kindness radiating and weaving through the assembly. "Every story told is a chance to learn something new." With her eyes granting permission for openness, the boy stepped forward. "Fine. What's your story then?" His challenge was laced with curiosity, a chance to thaw the frost of skepticism. David felt a spark of inspiration. "My story is about finding connection. I had everything materially, but without real relationships, I was hollow. That's why I'm here to learn from all of you." He glanced around, meeting the eyes of the kids flashing with intrigue. "Just like the things we cherish," he pointed out, "the connections we form can enrich our lives." The murmurs spread, the crowd shifting like waves on the beach. Timmy piped in, "Yeah. I have a Lego set from when I was 5 that means everything to me. It always reminded me that I could build anything I wanted." The laughter that followed felt contagious, spreading the warmth like sunlight breaking through clouds. The older boy's defenses seemed to dissolve, the laughter igniting something in him. "Okay, what's your first clue then?" he asked, now genuine curiosity etched into his brow. Before they could respond, the sun peeked through the branches overhead, illuminating the bond forming in front of them. "The first clue should be where we all hang out under this amazing tree. The roots represent all our stories intertwined," David suggested, feeling the energy ripple through the group. As they began to jot down the clues that stemmed from this idea, David felt something monumental happening. Stories filled the air, laughter replaced skepticism, and for the first time, he could see each child not as a stranger but as a thread weaving into a unified tapestry. Then Sarah spoke up, her voice cutting through the joyful energy. "I want you to know something, Danny. Trust isn't given, it's earned. Her eyes held a depth of understanding that resonated in the air. I understand, David replied, his tone soft but resolute. I'm ready to do the work. To be here, to listen, and ensure that this community means something to each one of you. Their day carried on, laughter echoing through the park until dusk turned the sky into a canvas of oranges and purples. David felt a joyful weight lift from his chest. Connections formed, laughter bounced like basketballs on asphalt, and he realized that support and trust could blossom even from the most fragile beginnings. As families began to gather around for the evening, David stood tall, his heart full. He had fought off the resistance that once felt insurmountable, standing proud among the friends he had gained. He had learned to let fear fuel his ambition instead of shying away from it. Tomorrow, we'll plan our next adventure. He called out, prompting a chorus of cheers, and as joy permeated the air, he realized that this journey was only beginning. But as David prepared to leave, he felt Ms. Thompson's eyes on him, nodding slowly. The moment he stepped away from the park, he caught a glimpse of that teenager again, now no longer a stranger but a companion lighting the path ahead. What will you do next? The boy asked, a hint of a challenge flickering in his voice. With a determined smile, David replied, together, we build this community. Together, we thrive. They walked toward the sun setting on the horizon, all of them illuminated by newfound hope and genuine connection. The echoes of laughter would be a reminder of what was to come. The change they created together would shape the world around them. As David took those steps, he knew one thing with certainty: none of them would be alone in this fight for authenticity and acceptance. And that made all the difference. So here's the call to action. You need to subscribe now to catch the next chapter of this inspiring journey, where transformation and community continue to flourish. Leave a like now. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. And I want to hear from you. Comment how this story resonated with you and what moments touched your heart. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation and feel the power of community. Your support means everything to us.